The north is cold and full of whispers.
The royal party had been at Winterfell for 3 days. 3 days of feasting, of Cersei Lannister's cold smiles, of King Robert Baratheon drinking northern ale and growing louder with each passing hour. 3 days of the castle transforming into something Jon Snow barely recognized. Servants rushing, lords bowing, everything polished and perfect for the king who had ridden north to ask Eddard Stark to be his hand. Jon stood at the edge of the training yard, watching Ser Rodrik Cassel organize the morning sparring sessions. The old master-at-arms had been pairing boys all week, showing off Winterfell's young warriors to the southern lords who'd come north with Robert. Snow, Ser Rodrik's voice cut across the yard. You're next, with the prince. Prince Joffrey Baratheon stood across the yard in gilded practice armor, golden hair catching the weak northern sun. 12 years old, beautiful as a Lannister, holding his tourney sword like it was a scepter rather than a weapon. Jon was 14, lean, dark-haired, wearing boiled leather that had been Robb's before it was his. A bastard facing a prince. The yard had gone quiet. Jon crossed to the center, wooden practice sword in hand. Ser Rodrik positioned them, calling out the rules. First touch, no killing strikes, honor above all. Joffrey's lip curled. Try not to embarrass yourself too badly, bastard. Jon said nothing. He'd learned that lesson young. Catelyn Stark's cold silences. Theon Greyjoy's mockery. Words were weapons he couldn't afford to use. So he'd learned other weapons instead. Ser Rodrik dropped his hand. Joffrey attacked immediately, an aggressive overhead slash meant to overwhelm. Flashy, aggressive. The kind of strike that looked impressive in a tourney, but left you open in real combat. Jon sidestepped, let Joffrey's blade whistle past, caught it on his own sword as the prince overextended, twisted his wrist with a technique Ser Rodrik had drilled into him 1,000 times, and sent the golden blade clattering across the frozen flagstones. Joffrey stumbled, fell. The yard went silent. Jon stood over the prince, sword lowered, breathing steady, waiting for permission to help Joffrey up, to apologize, to do whatever a bastard was supposed to do after humiliating a prince in front of the entire castle. Then Robert Baratheon laughed. Not polite laughter, not restrained royal amusement, a roar of genuine delight that echoed off Winterfell's gray walls. The king stood near the yard's edge, belly shaking, face red with mirth. 7 hells, Robert bellowed. Did you see that? The boy fights like a bloody demon. Good lad, good lad. Jon froze. Everyone froze. The hound shifted his weight near the prince. The Lannister guards tensed. And above the yard, in a window overlooking the training ground, Queen Cersei Lannister went very, very still. Joffrey's face flushed crimson, not with exertion, with humiliation he would never, ever forget. Robert strode into the yard, massive even in his declining years, and clapped Jon on the shoulder hard enough to stagger him. What's your name, boy? Lord Stark's bastard. I know. Robert's grin was fierce. Why didn't Ned tell me his bastard could fight like that? You've got wolf blood in you. I can see that clear as day. He turned to Eddard Stark, who stood nearby looking pale. Ned, why didn't you tell me? Jon trains with my sons, your grace, Ned said carefully. Ser Rodrik teaches them all. Well, he taught this one something right. Robert studied Jon with an intensity that made the boy want to step back. You've got the look of the north about you, that long face, those gray eyes. Reminds me of... He stopped, shook his head. Reminds me of better days. He released Jon's shoulder and walked away, still laughing, calling for wine. The yard slowly resumed movement. Joffrey climbed to his feet, refusing the hand Jon finally offered, and stalked away with murder in his green eyes. Jon stood alone in the center of the yard, wooden sword still in hand, and felt the weight of every gaze upon him. He had just made an enemy of a prince, and somehow earned the favor of a king. Winter fell. The crypt's evening. The crypts of Winterfell were cold and dark and honest. Robert Baratheon stood before Lyanna Stark's statue with a cup of wine in his hand, and grief written across his face. This was the second time he'd visited her tomb since arriving. The first had been immediately after the welcoming feast, drunk and maudlin, needing to see her stone face. Ned stood beside him in silence. They'd been here for an hour. Robert drinking, Ned waiting. Finally, Robert spoke. He reminds me of her. Ned's blood went cold. Your grace? The boy. Your bastard. Jon. Robert touched Lyanna's stone cheek with unexpected gentleness. He's got her look, that long face, those gray stark eyes, that same stubbornness I remember. His voice cracked, the way he stood there after disarming Joffrey, not gloating, not apologizing, just standing. She was like that. Wouldn't bend, wouldn't break. Jon is a good boy, Ned said carefully. Every word was a minefield. Better than good. I saw how he moved in that yard. Natural fighter. Quick. Controlled. The kind of warrior I could have used at the Trident. Robert drained his cup and immediately refilled it from the skin at his belt. She should have been mine, Ned. Your sister. We were supposed to marry. I was supposed to make her my queen. And then that silver-haired bastard stole her and everything went to shit. Ned said nothing. What could he say? That Rhaegar hadn't stolen Lyanna? That she'd gone willingly? That she'd loved the Dragon Prince and died giving birth to his son? The very son Robert was now praising? The boy's the closest thing to her I'll ever have, Robert said quietly. He turned from the statue to face Ned. I want to take him south with me. The world tilted. Your Grace? Make him my ward, my squire, if he's willing. Robert's voice grew stronger, more certain. He reminds me of her, Ned. I'll make a man of him. Better than rotting up here in the cold with... He stopped himself. Better than what he's got now. A bastard's got no prospects in the north. But in King's Landing, as the king's ward, I could do right by him. Give him what he deserves. Robert's grin was sudden and vicious. That's reason enough right there. That Lannister bitch hates everything I love. Having a northern bastard elevated above her precious golden children? She'll seethe. I want to see it. Ned's mind raced. This was impossible. This was disaster. Jon Snow was not Eddard Stark's bastard son. Jon was Aegon Targaryen, or Jaehaerys, the name was lost to time. The true-born son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. Born at the Tower of Joy in Dorne. Pulled from his dying mother's arms by Ned himself. Hidden for 14 years under the lie that Ned Stark, honorable Ned, had dishonored himself with some woman during the war. And Robert wanted to take him to King's Landing, to the Red Keep where Targaryen dragons had once roosted, to the court crawling with Lannisters and spies and people who remembered the rebellion, to the city where Robert had ordered the murder of Rhaegar's other children, Aegon and Rhaenys, smashed and stabbed by the mountain, and declared, I see no babes, only dragon spawn. If Robert ever learned the truth, if anyone ever discovered that his beloved ward was the son of the man he hated most in the world, Jon would die screaming. But Ned couldn't refuse. Robert's offer was functionally a royal command. Refusing would raise the exact questions Ned had spent 14 years trying to avoid. Why would Eddard Stark refuse such an honor for a bastard boy with no prospects? What could possibly make him so protective of this particular bastard? Catelyn would be thrilled to have Jon gone. The entire North would expect Ned to be grateful. Refusing would make Ned look like he was hiding something. Because he was. You honor my son, Your Grace, Ned said finally, the words like broken glass in his throat. But King's Landing is dangerous. For a boy like Jon, which is why you're coming south with me as hand, Robert interrupted. I asked you 3 days ago, Ned. I need you. The realm needs you. Jon Arryn is dead, and I'm drowning in Lannisters and schemers. Come south. Be my hand. Keep an eye on your boy while you're at it. Robert, don't tell me no, Ned. Not about this. Not about any of it. Robert's voice dropped. I loved her. Your sister. I loved her more than anything in this world, and Rhaegar Targaryen took her from me, and I killed him for it, and it still wasn't enough. Nothing is ever enough. But your boy, Jon, he's got her look. And if I can't have her, if I can't bring her back, at least I can do right by someone who reminds me of what I lost. Ned closed his eyes, felt the weight of the promise he'd made to Lyanna crushing down on him. Promise me, Ned. Promise me you'll protect him. He'd promised, and he'd kept that promise for 14 years. Now he had to send Jon into the most dangerous place in Westeros and pray the boy survived it. I'll speak with Jon, Ned said. If he agrees, he's yours. Good man. Robert clapped him on the shoulder. We leave in 3 days. Get your affairs in order. And Ned, thank you. For this. For everything. Robert left the crypts, already calling for more wine. Ned stood alone before his sister's statue. Forgive me, Lyanna, he whispered. I don't know what else to do. Winterfell, Ned's Solar, night. You want to send Jon away? Catelyn Stark's voice was carefully neutral, but Ned heard the relief underneath. 14 years of marriage had taught him to read his wife, even when she was trying to hide. The king has asked for him, Ned said, as his ward, his squire. And you agreed. I had no choice. Catelyn moved to the window, looking out at Winterfell's darkened yard. This is good for him, Ned. A bastard needs opportunities. The king's favor could give him a future he'd never have here. Here, where Catelyn's cold silences reminded Jon daily that he didn't belong. Where he sat at the far end of the table. Where he'd never been allowed into the great hall when royalty visited, until this very trip. Cat, I know you love him. Her voice was soft. I know he's your blood. But Ned, he's also a reminder of something that hurt me deeply. Having him gone, it would be easier. For both of us. The cruel irony was that Catelyn was right for all the wrong reasons. Jon's absence would make her life easier, and it would make Ned's life harder, because the secret he'd carried would be 300 leagues away, surrounded by enemies, with Ned unable to protect him. There are dangers in the south, Ned said. There are dangers everywhere. At least in King's Landing, he'll have the king's protection. Here, he has nothing. No title, no prospects, no future except the Night's Watch or a sellsword's life. Catelyn turned from the window. Let him go, Ned. Let him have a chance. Ned nodded slowly. I'll tell him tomorrow. And you? Robert asked you to be his hand. Yes. Will you accept? I already have. Ned's voice was heavy. Jon Arryn is dead. Robert needs someone he trusts. And if I'm going south anyway, I can watch over Jon. Keep him safe. The Lannisters. The court? The questions people might ask about why a bastard looks so much like the Stark girl Rhaegar Targaryen supposedly stole. The risk that Robert, drunk and sentimental, might start examining Jon's features too closely and see not Ned's face but Lyanna's. And beyond that, the truth Ned had buried. From the Game of Thrones, Ned said. From people who would use him to hurt me. From a world that's crueler than anything we have here. Catelyn crossed to him and placed her hand over his. Then, protect him. You're good at that, Ned. You always have been. If only she knew how much protecting Jon had already cost him. Winterfell, Armory, next morning. Jon was oiling his practice sword when Ned found him. Walk with me, Ned said. They walked in silence through Winterfell's halls, past servants preparing for the king's departure, past Stark soldiers and Lannister guards, out into the Godswood where the heart tree's red leaves rustled in the cold wind, and the face carved into the weirwood's trunk watched them with sap like blood tears. The king has asked for you, Ned said. As his ward, he wants to take you south to King's Landing, make you his squire. Jon stared. Me? You impressed him yesterday, in the yard. I humiliated his son. You beat his son fairly. Robert respects that. He values strength, Jon. Skill. You have both. Ned's voice was careful. This is a great honor. One that could change your life. I'm a bastard. The king knows that. He doesn't care. The Red Keep, where the Targaryens had ruled for 300 years. The court he'd heard about in stories. Knights and lords and ladies, tournaments and intrigue. And away from Winterfell. Away from Catelyn Stark's cold silences. Away from being the bastard in the corner. Would you come with me? Jon asked. Robert has asked me to be his hand. I accepted. I'll be in King's Landing. I can watch over you. Then I'll go. The words came out before Jon could think them through. If the king truly wants me, I'll serve him. Ned's expression was unreadable. Jon, I need you to understand something. King's Landing is not Winterfell. The people there are different. Dangerous. You'll be surrounded by Lannisters, by schemers, by men and women who smile while they plot your ruin. I can handle myself. Can you? You're 14 years old. You've never been south of Winterfell. You don't know how to play their games. Then I'll learn. Jon's voice was steady. Father, you taught me to fight. Maester Luwin taught me to read and write. Sir Roderick taught me honor. I'm not walking into the south blind. No. But you're walking in young. Ned gripped Jon's shoulder. Listen to me. Whatever happens in King's Landing, whatever you see, whatever you hear, whatever people tell you, remember who you are. You are my blood, Jon Snow. Do not forget that. Do not forget where you come from. And do not, Ned's voice dropped. Do not forget that some secrets are kept because revealing them would destroy the people we love. Jon frowned. What secrets? Just remember. Please. It was the closest Ned Stark had ever come to begging. I'll remember, Jon promised. Ned pulled him into an embrace. Rare, fierce, desperate. I love you, Jon. You are my son in every way that matters. Never doubt that. When Ned released him, there were tears in the Lord of Winterfell's eyes. Jon had never seen his father cry before. The King's Road, heading south. They departed Winterfell 3 days later. Jon rode near the king's party, not quite with them, but not relegated to the supply wagons either. Robert had given him a good horse, decent traveling clothes, and a place in the column that made his new status clear. He was the king's ward now. Not a son, not a prince, but something more than a bastard. Joffrey Baratheon rode with his mother and siblings, refusing to look at Jon. The Hound rode nearby, silent and grim. The Lannister guards watched Jon with flat, evaluating eyes. And Robert talked. Tell me about your mother, the king said on the third day out from Winterfell. Jon's chest tightened. I don't know anything about her, your grace. Father never spoke of her. Not even her name? He said it would dishonor her to speak of it. That she'd suffered enough. Honorable Ned. Always protecting people's feelings. Robert took a pull from his wineskin. You've got the look of a Stark, though. That long face. Those gray eyes. I'd swear you were Ned's true-born son if I didn't know better. Jon forced a smile. Thank you, your grace. It's just the truth. Robert steadied him. You remind me of someone. Can't quite place it. Someone from the war, maybe. A fighter. Proud. Wouldn't bend. I hope that's a compliment, your grace. It is. Robert's expression turned distant. The best people I've ever known were the ones who wouldn't bend, wouldn't break, stood for something even when it cost them everything. He shook himself. Anyway, when we reach King's Landing, you'll be my squire. That means serving me personally, attending me at court, learning how to, he gestured vaguely, be a man, a knight, maybe, if you're good enough. I'll try to be worthy of the honor. You already are, boy. Beating Joffrey in that yard was the most entertainment I've had in years. Robert's grin was fierce. Did you see Cersei's face? Looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. I swear I could feel her planning your murder from across the yard. Your grace? I'm joking. Mostly. Robert waved dismissively. Cersei's all bark. Well, bark and poison, but she won't try anything with me watching. You're under my protection now, Jon Snow. Anyone who touches you answers to me. It should have been reassuring, but Jon couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just been marked as prey. King's Landing. Arrival. The capital smelled like shit. That was Jon's first thought as they rode through the city gates. Winterfell smelled like stone and pine and clean northern air. King's Landing smelled like sewage and sweat, and too many people crammed into too small a space. The second thought was that everything was too bright, too hot, too loud. The Red Keep rose above the city like a blood-red mountain. 7 massive drums and towers crowned with iron battlements. The throne room was inside there, the Iron Throne. 300 years of Targaryen rule concentrated into a seat made of 1,000 melted swords. Jon had grown up hearing stories about this place. Now he was going to live here. Overwhelming, isn't it? Ned rode beside him, his face grim. I felt the same way the first time I saw it, during the rebellion. The city was burning then. Wildfire and blood. I swore I'd never come back. But you did. For Robert. And for you. Ned's voice dropped. Jon, remember what I told you. Watch. Listen. Trust no one except me. And if you see something strange, something that doesn't fit, come to me. Immediately. What kind of something? Anything. Everything. This city is built on secrets, Jon. Some of them are deadly. Red Keep. Jon's quarters. First week, Robert had given Jon a room in Maegor's Holdfast, the massive square fortress at the Red Keep's center. Small, but private. Better than anything Jon had ever had at Winterfell. The king's favor was immediate and public. Robert took Jon hunting in the Kingswood. Taught him to drink wine, badly, Jon discovered, as southern wine was nothing like northern ale. Introduced him to knights and lords with booming enthusiasm. This is Ned Stark's boy. Fights like a bloody demon. Lancel, a year younger than Jon and golden-haired like all the Lannisters, watched with barely concealed fury as Jon attended the king at meals, carried his weapons to the training yard and received Robert's casual affection. Affection Robert had never shown his own son. Jon watched Joffrey across the great hall during feasts. The prince sat with his mother and siblings, beautiful and cold, green eyes tracking Jon's every movement. The humiliation in the Winterfell training yard had not been forgotten. Cersei Lannister watched too, calculating, silent, dangerous. But Robert seemed oblivious to the tension. For the first time in years, perhaps since the rebellion, the king was engaged with his household. He told Jon war stories, described battles, talked about honor and glory and the brotherhood of warriors. "You're the son I should have had," Robert said one night, drunk and maudlin. "Brave, strong. Northern steel in you, not like," he gestured toward the royal apartments where Joffrey slept. "Not like that. Red Keep, training yard, second week." Robert insisted Jon and Joffrey spar regularly. "Boys need to train together," the king declared. "Builds character, teaches them to respect each other's skill." And it did not teach respect. Jon won, every time. Not because he was trying to humiliate the prince. He pulled his strikes, gave openings, tried to make the bouts competitive. But Joffrey's technique was brittle and flashy. He'd been trained for tournaments, not combat. And Jon had been trained by Ser Rodrik Cassel in a castle where winter was always coming and soft men died. Each defeat enraged Joffrey more. After the fifth bout, Joffrey threw his practice sword at Jon's head. It missed, clattering against the wall. "You cheat," the prince screamed. "You're cheating somehow. No bastard should be able to beat me." Robert, watching from the yard's edge, laughed. "The boy's just better than you, Joffrey. Accept it. Learn from it." "I won't learn from a bastard." "Then you'll never learn anything worth knowing." Robert's voice went cold. "Now pick up your sword and try again." Joffrey fled the yard instead, golden cape billowing. Robert sighed. Soft. Too soft. Cersei's ruined him. He clapped Jon on the shoulder. "But you've got iron in you. Good lad." Jon stood in the yard after the king left, wooden sword in hand, and felt the weight of Joffrey's hatred pressing down like a physical thing. This wouldn't end well. He knew it in his bones. Red Keep, Great Hall dinner. Robert seated Jon beside him, at the high table. It was a breach of protocol that made every lord in the hall notice. Bastards didn't sit at high tables. Bastards didn't eat beside kings. But Robert didn't care. He told stories, loud and booming, ruffling Jon's dark hair like he was a favored dog, laughing, drinking, more alive than anyone had seen him in years. Across the table, Joffrey sat between his mother and sister, golden and seething. Every time Robert praised Jon, Joffrey's face grew tighter. Every time the king laughed at one of Jon's responses, Joffrey's hands clenched. Cersei watched it all with hooded eyes, wine cup held delicately, calculating something Jon couldn't see. "Your Grace," she said finally, her voice honey over ice. "Perhaps the Stark boy would be more comfortable eating with the household knights. The high table is rather formal for the boy I've chosen to serve me personally." "Say it, Cersei. What were you about to call him?" "I merely meant. I know what you meant, and I don't care." Robert turned back to Jon. "Ignore her. You belong here. With me, where I say you belong." The table went silent. Cersei's smile never wavered, but her eyes promised murder. Red Keep, corridor, private confrontation. 3 days later, Joffrey cornered Jon in a corridor. The Hound stood nearby, close enough to intervene if the prince was threatened, far enough to give the illusion of privacy. "You think you're special," Joffrey hissed. "You think because my father—" The word was poison. "Because the king favors you, that makes you something more than you are. But you're not. You're nothing. A stain on a bedsheet. A mistake some northern whore made with Lord Stark." Jon stood very still. He'd heard variations of this speech his entire life. From Catelyn, from Theon, from servants who thought he couldn't hear. "I don't think I'm special, Your Grace," Jon said quietly. "I know exactly what I am." "Do you? Because you're acting like you belong at the high table. Like you belong in my father's company. Like you're—" Joffrey's voice rose. "Like you're better than me. I'm not better than you. I'm just better at fighting." It was the wrong thing to say. Joffrey's face went purple. "I am the crown prince of the Seven Kingdoms. I am a Baratheon. You are nothing. Then why does it bother you so much when I win? The hound shifted. A warning. Jon stepped back, hands raised in peace. Your Grace, I don't want to fight you. Not in the yard. Not here. I'm just trying to serve the king. You're trying to steal what's mine. I can't steal something that was never offered to me. My father's love was offered to me. Joffrey's voice cracked. I'm his son, his true son, and you're just some bastard he likes because you remind him of, he stopped, of whatever it is he drinks himself to sleep thinking about. The words hung in the corridor. Joffrey turned and walked away, the hound following. Jon stood alone, heart pounding, and realized something terrible. Joffrey wasn't just angry. He was afraid. Afraid that Robert's favor was finite, that there was only so much love the king could give, and that Jon was taking it all. Red Keep, Library, 3rd week. Jon had always loved books. Maester Luwin had taught him to read when he was 5 years old, and reading had become his escape. At Winterfell, when Catelyn's silences grew too cold or Theon's mockery too sharp, Jon could disappear into the library and lose himself in histories and legends. The Red Keep's library was vast, larger than anything Winterfell possessed. Rows of shelves containing the accumulated knowledge of 300 years of Targaryen rule and 18 years of Baratheon succession. Jon had come looking for books about the North, about Stark history, about his mother, though he knew he'd find nothing. Ned had never spoken of her, had never given Jon even a name to search for. But maybe there were records. Bastards of great lords, northern houses, something that might tell him where he came from. He found himself in the genealogy section instead. The Lineages and Histories of the Great Houses of the Seven Kingdoms, by Grand Maester Mallion. A massive tome, leather-bound, pages yellowed with age. Jon opened it to the Stark section first. Read through generations of Starks. Brandon, Rickard, his father Eddard, his siblings Brandon, Lyanna, Benjen. No mention of bastards, no mention of Jon Snow. He was about to close the book when something caught his eye. The Baratheon entry. He'd only meant to glance at it, but something in the repetition of phrases drew him in. Orys Baratheon, black of hair, wed to Argella Durrandon, fair of face. Their children, Davos Baratheon, black of hair. Mary Baratheon, black of hair. Rhaegar Baratheon, black of hair, brown of eye, wed to Alyssa Valerian, silver of hair. Their children, Boromund Baratheon, black of hair. Jocelyn Baratheon, black of hair. Boromund Baratheon, black of hair, brown of eye, wed to... The pattern continued, page after page, entry after entry. 300 years of Baratheon marriages to fair-haired houses, to silver-haired Targaryens, to golden Lannisters in earlier generations. Every single union produced black-haired children. Brown of eye, black of hair, strong of bone and sinew. The phrase repeated like a drumbeat through the generations. Jon's finger traced down to the most recent entry. Robert Baratheon, black of hair, brown of eye, strong of bone and sinew. Victor of Robert's Rebellion. Wed to Cersei of House Lannister, golden of hair, green of eye. No children listed. Jon frowned. That was wrong. Robert had 3 children. Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen. Everyone knew that. So why weren't they in the book? He flipped forward, looking for updates, corrections, anything. Found nothing. The entry for Robert ended with his marriage to Cersei, as if the children didn't exist. Or as if whoever compiled this section couldn't bring themselves to write the obvious lie. Jon thought about Joffrey. Golden-haired, green-eyed, slender where Robert was barrel-chested even in decline. He thought about Myrcella, pretty, delicate, looking exactly like a smaller version of her mother. He thought about Tommen, soft-featured, round-faced, with none of Robert's heavy brow or strong jaw. And he thought about something he'd seen 3 days ago at the Street of Steel. Robert had sent Jon to Tobo Mott's smithy to commission a sword, a gift for Jon's 15th name day, still months away. Something northern, Robert had said, something worthy of Ned Stark's blood. Met the master smith, and seen the apprentice, a boy perhaps 16 years old, black-haired, blue-eyed, with Robert's jaw, Robert's brow, Robert's heavy build already showing despite his youth. "What's your name?" Jon had asked. "Gendry, my lord." "Well, not my lord. You're not a lord either, are you?" "You're..." The boy had stopped, embarrassed. "I'm a bastard. Like you, I'd wager." "I," Gendry had grinned. "My mum worked in an alehouse. Died when I was little. Some lord paid my apprentice fee, but I don't know who." Jon had looked at Gendry's face and known exactly which lord. This boy looked more like King Robert Baratheon than the Crown Prince did. Now in the library, Jon stared at the Baratheon genealogy and felt his blood turn to ice. Brown of eye, black of hair, strong of bone and sinew, every Baratheon, for 300 years, without exception. Gendry was black-haired. Jon had heard Robert's other bastards mentioned in passing at court. Maya Stone in the Vale, Bella in the Riverlands, Bara, an infant in a brothel in the city. All black-haired. All except the Crown Prince of the Seven Kingdoms. "The seed is strong," Jon whispered. He understood. Red Keep, Ned's chambers, that night. Ned opened it, still dressed despite the late hour. One look at Jon's face and he pulled the boy inside, closing and barring the door. "What's wrong, Father?" Jon's hands were shaking. "I need to tell you something, but I don't know if I should. I don't know if it's true, I don't know." "Jon, breathe. Sit." Ned guided him to a chair. "Now tell me, slowly, about the pattern he'd noticed. 300 years of black-haired Baratheons, every single one, without exception. About Gendry, about Joffrey's golden curls." "Father," Jon said, and his voice was barely a whisper, "Joffrey is not the king's son. None of them are. He swallowed. They're Jaime Lannister's children. Aren't they?" For a long moment, the hand of the king said nothing, just stared at his bastard son, the boy who wasn't his son at all but whom he'd protected for 14 years, and felt the careful walls he'd built come crashing down. "How did you find this?" Ned's voice was hollow. "The book, the pattern, Gendry's face, and—" Jon hesitated. "And I've spent my whole life wondering about parentage, about family resemblance, about who I look like and who I don't. I notice these things, Father. I can't help it." Jon Arryn found the same truth. Ned said quietly, "And Jon Arryn is dead." Jon's face went pale. "The former hand? He was murdered." "I believe so. He'd been reading that same book, visiting Robert's bastards, asking questions about inheritance and lineage, and then he fell ill with a fever that killed him in days." Ned stood pacing. "I've suspected since I arrived. Suspected but couldn't prove. Couldn't act without certainty. But Jon, if you've found this, if you've seen it, then others might see it too." "Yes, which means we're all in danger." Ned gripped Jon's shoulders. "Listen to me very carefully. You cannot speak of this to anyone. Not the king, not your friends if you've made any, not servants, not guards. No one, but Robert should know. Cersei, Jaime, the children. He'll execute them without trial, without mercy, and then Tywin Lannister will march on King's Landing with 60,000 men and the realm will burn." Ned's voice was fierce. "I need time, Jon. Time to gather evidence that will stand up in law. Time to prepare for what comes after the revelation. Time to ensure this doesn't end in another war. How long? I don't know. Weeks, maybe months. But Jon," Ned's eyes were desperate, "you've put yourself in terrible danger by discovering this. Cersei is not a fool. She has spies everywhere. If she learns that you've been reading that book, that you've been asking questions, she'll kill me. She'll try." Ned pulled Jon close, embracing him. "I won't let that happen. I swear it. But you must be careful. Watch your back. Trust no one. I trust you. Good. Keep it that way." Ned released him. "Go back to your chambers. Act normally. Serve the king. And Jon, if anything strange happens, anything that feels wrong, come to me immediately." Ned stood alone in his chambers, staring at the closed door, and felt the familiar weight of secrets crushing down. He'd spent 14 years protecting Jon from Robert's hatred of Targaryens. Now Jon had discovered a different secret, one that could save the realm or destroy it. And Ned had no idea which it would be. Red Keep, training yard. 4 days later, the attempt on Jon's life came during a routine sparring session. Sir Roderick had returned to Winterfell with Catelyn and the girls. The Red Keep's master-at-arms was a Lannister man, skilled but cold. He'd paired Jon against one of the household guards for practice, a man-at-arms in Lannister crimson and gold. The man was good, better than good. He pushed Jon hard, forcing him to use every technique Sir Roderick had taught him. But something felt wrong. The strikes were too aggressive for practice. The man's eyes were too focused. And when Jon blocked a mace blow that came at his temple with killing force, he saw it clearly. This wasn't practice. This was murder. Jon twisted away from the next strike. Yield! I yield! The man didn't stop. He swung again, mace whistling toward Jon's skull. A massive hand caught the mace mid-swing. Sandor Clegane stood in the yard, his burned face twisted with contempt. Training's over. The man-at-arms tried to pull his weapon free. The hound's grip didn't budge. I said, "It's over." Sandor's voice was a growl. "Unless you want to try that killing blow on someone who'll kill you back." Quickly, not meeting anyone's eyes, Sandor let him go. Turned to Jon. "You all right, boy?" "Yes. Thank you." Jon's hands were shaking. He was trying to kill me. I wasn't subtle about it either. The hound studied him. "You've made enemies, Stark. The kind who hire killers instead of fighting their own battles. Watch yourself. Why did you help me?" "Because I hate bullies who hide behind servants to do their dirty work." Sandor's smile was a terrible thing. "And because you remind me of someone. Another girl, different circumstances, but the same look in your eyes. Like you don't belong here, but you're trying anyway." He walked away before Jon could ask what he meant. Jon stood in the yard, wooden sword in hand, and felt the full weight of his situation. Cersei knew, or suspected, and she just tried to have him killed. He went straight to Ned's chambers, emergency council. They tried to kill him. Ned's voice was flat with rage. He stood before his desk, Jon beside him, both of them facing the truth they could no longer avoid. "We don't have proof it was Cersei," Jon said, though he didn't believe it himself. "We don't need proof. The pattern is clear. Jon Arryn discovered the truth about the children. Jon Arryn died. You discovered the same truth. Now someone tries to kill you in the training yard." Ned slammed his fist on the desk. "Cersei knows. She might not know exactly what you've concluded, but she knows you're a threat. Then we tell Robert. Now. Before she can what? She's already tried once. If she knows we're moving against her, she'll accelerate, poison the king, kill us both, flee with her children, and start a war." Ned paced. "We need evidence that Robert will believe, not just the book, not just your observations. Something concrete. The children themselves are evidence. Look at them. Look at Gendry. Look at any of Robert's bastards. Robert doesn't want to see it, Jon. He's avoided his children for 12 years because looking at Joffrey reminds him that he married a Lannister instead of Lyanna Stark. If we go to him with accusations based on genealogy books and bastard resemblances, he might refuse to believe us out of sheer stubbornness." Looked at his son, not his son, the boy he'd raised and protected and lied for, the boy who'd just saved them all by being too observant for his own good. "We tell him," Ned said, "but we do it right. We present everything. The book, the pattern, Gendry's face, the attempt on your life. We make it impossible for him to deny." He moved to his desk, pulling out parchment. "I'll send for Gendry. Bring him to the Red Keep under some pretext. Robert needs to see his own face in that boy's features while Joffrey stands nearby. The contrast will speak louder than any words. Before Cersei can try again, before she can poison Robert's mind or his body. We tell him everything tomorrow." Jon nodded. "And if he doesn't believe us, he will. Because you're right, Jon. The seed is strong. And Robert Baratheon is many things. A drunk, a fool, a man drowning in regrets. But he's not blind." Red Keep, Robert's chambers, next day. They came to Robert at noon, when the king was sober enough to understand, but not yet drunk enough to dismiss. Ned and Jon entered together. Gendry followed, confused and nervous, still wearing his smith's apron because there'd been no time to find him better clothes. "Ned?" Robert looked up from his desk, frowning. "What's this about? Who's the boy?" "Your son, your grace." Ned's voice was steady. "One of them." Robert stared. "What?" "His mother worked in an alehouse and died when he was young. Someone, a lord, paid his apprentice fee but never claimed him." Ned gestured to the boy. "Look at him, Robert. Really look." Robert stood, crossed to Gendry, studied his face. Black hair, blue eyes, heavy brow, strong jaw. Robert's jaw. "7 hells," Robert breathed. "He's mine. Just as Maya Stone is yours. Just as Edric Storm and Bera and half a dozen others across the realm are yours. All black-haired. All carrying your features. Ned pulled out the lineages book. This is the lineages and histories of the great houses. Read it. Every Baratheon marriage for 300 years. Every child born of Baratheon seed. All black-haired, without exception. Ned, what are you? Read the entry for your marriage to Cersei. Robert took the book. Read. His face went white. There are no children listed. Robert, your children, Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen, they're not yours. The silence was absolute. Then Robert threw the book across the room. That's treason, Ned, accusing the queen. Your ward, the boy you've favored for weeks. He noticed what everyone else has trained themselves not to see, that Joffrey looks nothing like you, that all your bastards are black-haired, that the seed is strong. Robert turned to Jon. You found this? Yes, Your Grace. I didn't mean to. I was looking for information about my own mother in the library. I found the lineages book instead, and when I read the Baratheon section, I noticed the pattern. Then I met Gendry at the forge, and I realized, Jon's voice shook. I realized the Crown Prince looks nothing like his father. Jon was nearly killed 3 days ago, Ned added. A training accident that wasn't an accident. Someone tried to murder him in the yard. The same way Jon Arryn was murdered after he discovered the same truth. Jon Arryn. Robert's voice was hollow. He was reading this book? Yes. Visiting your bastards, asking questions about inheritance, and then he fell ill with a fever and died. Ned moved closer. Robert, I believe Cersei poisoned him, and I believe she tried to kill Jon when she learned he'd been reading the same book. She knows we're discovering the truth, and she's trying to silence us. Robert stood very still. Then he began to shake, not with fear, with rage. She cuckolded me. His voice was barely a whisper. In my own bed, with her own brother. For 12 years. And those children, those golden-haired little shits, they're Jaime Lannister's bastards. Not mine. Yes. That whore, Robert's roar shook the room. He grabbed his wine cup and hurled it against the wall, sending red liquid spattering like blood. I'll kill them. I'll kill them both. Robert. Ned grabbed his friend's arm. Robert, listen to me. You are the king. You don't get to act like a wounded husband. You have to act like a king. I am acting like a king. I'm going to execute my treasonous wife and her brother-fucking lover, and then what? Tywin Lannister calls his banners. 60,000 Westermen march on the capital. The realm descends into war. Is that what you want? Another war. More death? Robert was breathing hard, face purple with fury. What else can I do? Let them live? Let that whore keep pretending her bastards are mine? No. But we do this legally. We gather evidence. We present it to the realm. We give you grounds for annulment and execution that no one can challenge. I don't need grounds. I'm the king. You're the king who won his throne through conquest. That makes you strong. But it also makes you vulnerable. If you act like a tyrant, if you execute the queen without evidence, without trial, you give your enemies exactly what they need, proof that you're a mad king who kills on whim. Ned's voice was fierce. Don't give them that, Robert. Be better than that. Be the king you should have been. The rage slowly drained from Robert's face, leaving only exhaustion. What do I do, Ned? Tell me what to do. We present the evidence to the realm. The book, the bastards, the pattern. We give the other great houses time to understand what's happened and choose their loyalties, and we make it clear that this isn't tyranny. This is justice. Robert looked at Gendry, still standing awkwardly near the door. At Jon, pale but steady. At Ned, his oldest friend, the brother of the woman he'd loved and lost. Do it, Robert said finally. Arrest them all. And Ned, make sure they understand. Make sure everyone understands. I am the king, and anyone who cuckolds the king dies. Red Keep, the arrests. That afternoon, Ser Barristan Selmy was the first person Robert summoned. The greatest knight in the 7 kingdoms came immediately, confusion written on his face. Robert met him in the throne room, Ned at his side, Jon standing quietly in the shadows. Ser Barristan, Robert said. His voice was cold sober. I have a command for you, one you're not going to like. Your Grace, arrest Sir Jaime Lannister. Bring him to me, alive. in chains. Barristan's face showed shock. Your Grace, Sir Jaime is a Kingsguard. Sir Jaime is a traitor, and you will arrest him. That is a direct command from your king. For a long moment, Barristan stood frozen. Then he bowed. As you command, Your Grace. He left. Returned an hour later with Jaime Lannister in chains. The Kingslayer had not come quietly. There was blood on Barristan's armor. Jaime's face was bruised, his famous smile replaced with cold hatred. What is this? Jaime demanded. Robert, what madness? Shut your mouth. Robert's voice was death. You're under arrest for high treason, for adultery with the Queen, for fathering bastards on my wife and passing them off as my legitimate heirs. Jaime went very still. You can't prove that. I can, and I will. Take him to the black cells. She saw the guards coming and understood immediately. When you play the Game of Thrones, she said to Ned as they bound her hands, you win or you die. The children, Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen, were taken into custody and confined to their rooms. Joffrey screamed. Myrcella cried. Tommen was silent, too young to understand. Robert stood in the throne room, surrounded by his guards, and made his declaration. Send ravens to every great house. Tell them Queen Cersei's children are bastards born of incest with Jaime Lannister. Tell them the Queen and the Kingslayer are arrested for high treason. Tell them I am annulling my marriage, and the children are stripped of all titles and inheritance. And Stannis, Your Grace? Ned asked quietly. Stannis is my heir, until I marry again and produce legitimate children. Send him word. Bring him from Dragonstone. The realm needs to see that the succession is secure. The ravens flew, and the reckoning Red Keep, small council chamber, that evening. The small council convened in emergency session. Robert sat at the head of the table, still sober, still radiating the cold fury that had transformed him from drunken fool to warrior king in the span of hours. Ned Stark sat to his right, his hand. Jon Snow stood in the corner, not a counselor, but the boy whose discovery had triggered this entire crisis. His presence was Robert's statement. This bastard has more honor than my entire family. Grand Maester Pycelle was pale, his hands trembling as he gripped his staff. Lord Varys wore his usual simpering smile, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. Petyr Baelish lounged in his chair with studied casualness that didn't quite hide his tension. Lord Renly Baratheon, Robert's youngest brother, looked stunned. The ravens have been sent, Ned reported. Every great house will know within days. Stannis will sail from Dragonstone immediately. Good. Robert's voice was flat. Now we discuss what happens next, because Tywin Lannister isn't going to accept this quietly. Varys, what do your little birds tell you? Varys folded his hands. Lord Tywin is at Casterly Rock, Your Grace. He commands approximately 60,000 men if he calls his full levies. The question is whether he will march on King's Landing to rescue his children, or whether he will negotiate. He'll negotiate, Littlefinger said smoothly. Tywin Lannister is many things, but he's not stupid. You hold his children and grandchildren hostage. Marching on the capital means their deaths. He'll offer terms, Renly asked. Financial, mostly. The crown owes the Lannisters 3 million gold dragons. Tywin will offer to forgive the debt in exchange for clemency. Perhaps exile instead of execution. Perhaps allowing Jaime to take the black rather than face the headsman's axe. Littlefinger's smile was thin. He'll try to preserve what he can of House Lannister's position. He can try all he wants, Robert growled. I'm not negotiating with the man whose daughter cuckolded me for 12 years. Cersei dies. Jaime dies. The children are bastardized and sent to the faith or fostered far from the capital. That's final. Pycelle cleared his throat nervously. Your Grace, with respect, executing the Queen without trial could be seen as what? Justice. She committed treason, Pycelle. High treason. Adultery with a Kingsguard. Passing bastards off as legitimate heirs to the Iron Throne. What punishment other than death could possibly fit? A public trial where the evidence is presented, where the realm can see that this isn't tyranny but law. Robert's jaw clenched. You want me to parade my humiliation in front of the entire realm? I want you to show the realm that you're a just king, that you follow the law, even when it hurts. That you're not executing Cersei because she wounded your pride. You're executing her because she committed crimes so severe that death is the only possible sentence. Ned leaned forward. Robert, if you kill her without trial, her supporters will claim you're a mad king. Give them no ammunition. Show them justice. Robert was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. Fine. A trial. Public. In the throne room. With all the evidence presented. But the verdict is already decided. She's guilty. And she dies. Agreed, Ned said. And the military situation? Robert looked at Renly. If Tywin does march, what are our forces? Renly consulted parchment notes. The crown has approximately 2,000 gold cloaks in the city, Your Grace. Your household guard numbers 500. The crown lands can raise perhaps 15,000 men if we call the levies. The Stormlands, your own bannermen, can field 30,000. Total, perhaps 50,000 if we mobilize fully. Against Tywin's 60,000. But Your Grace, Varys interjected softly. Tywin would not face only your forces. The other great houses must be considered. The North is sworn to Lord Stark. The Riverlands are allied to the Starks through Lady Catelyn. The Vale has historical ties to both you and Lord Stark through Jon Arryn. The Reach, he smiled. The Reach is very interested in a certain match between yourself and Marjorie Tyrell. They would eagerly support you to gain the Queen's crown. And Dorne, Ned asked. Dorne would be delighted to see the Lannisters destroyed, Varys said. Gregor Clegane murdered Elia Martell and her children on Tywin's orders. The Martells have waited 17 years for vengeance. If you offer them Lannister blood, they'll support you without question. Robert looked around the table. So Tywin would be isolated. Every other kingdom either neutral or actively against him. Yes, Your Grace. Which is why Lord Baelish is correct. Tywin will negotiate rather than fight a war he cannot win. Then let him send his terms. I'll hear them, and then I'll reject them and execute his daughter anyway. Robert stood. This meeting is adjourned. Ned, stay. The rest of you, get out. The councillors fled. When only Ned and Jon remained, Robert's shoulders sagged. The rage drained away, leaving only exhaustion. I'm tired, Ned, so God's damned tired. I know. 14 years I've been married to that woman. 14 years of her cold eyes and colder bed. Knowing she didn't love me. Knowing I didn't love her. But I thought, his voice cracked, I thought at least the children were mine. At least I'd done my duty and produced heirs. And now even that's been taken from me. You'll marry again, Ned said. Produce legitimate heirs. The realm will laugh at me. The great Robert Baratheon, cuckold king, couldn't even keep his own wife faithful. Robert collapsed into his chair. Do you know what the worst part is? I don't even mourn the children. I should, shouldn't I? They were raised as mine for 12 years. But I look at Joffrey and I feel nothing. Less than nothing. He's a little shit who enjoys cruelty. Myrcella and Tommen are, fine, I suppose, innocent, but they're not mine. And I can't bring myself to care. Jon spoke from the corner, his voice quiet. Your Grace, if I may, the children are innocent of their parents' crimes. They didn't choose to be born of incest. Punish Cersei and Jaime, but the children will be provided for, Robert interrupted. I'm not a monster, boy. They'll be sent to the faith or fostered with houses far from court, given new names, new lives. But they won't be Baratheons. They won't inherit anything, and they won't stay in King's Landing where their mere presence reminds me of what I lost. Lost, Your Grace? Jon asked carefully. My pride, my dignity, the illusion that I was a king. Robert looked at Jon. You saved me, you know. If you hadn't discovered the truth, if you hadn't been curious enough to read that damned book, I might have died never knowing, and Joffrey would have been crowned after me. A false king, an incest-born bastard sitting the Iron Throne. You prevented that, Jon Snow. I just noticed what everyone else ignored, Your Grace. Because you're a bastard, you know what it means to not belong, to watch family resemblances and wonder about your own. That's what made you see what blind men like me couldn't. Robert stood and moved to Jon. I'm going to reward you, properly. When this is over, when Cersei's head is on a spike and the realm is settled, I'm going to legitimize you. Make you Jon Stark. Give you lands. A future. You've earned it. Jon's face paled. Your Grace, I don't need it. That's why you deserve it. Robert clapped his shoulder. You're a good lad, Jon. Better than any son I've had or ever will have. Your father raised you right. He left the chamber. Jon stood frozen. Ned moved to his side. He wants to legitimize me, Jon whispered. I know. Father, if he does that, if I become Jon Stark, if I rise higher in the succession, Jon's voice shook. My secret becomes more dangerous. If anyone ever discovers I'm not your son, if they learn the truth about my birth, then we'll deal with it. Ned gripped Jon's shoulders. But right now, we focus on surviving the next few weeks, on making sure Robert's justice is clean and legal, on preventing a war. The future will take care of itself. Jon nodded, but his face showed the same fear Ned felt in his bones. The higher Jon rose, the more dangerous the truth became, and there was no way to stop Robert from elevating the boy who'd saved his throne. Casterly Rock, Tywin's Response. 3 days later, the Raven reached Tywin Lannister at dawn. He read the message 3 times. Then he summoned his advisors, his military commanders, and his remaining son. Tyrion Lannister entered his father's solar with his usual swagger, though his mismatched eyes showed concern. You sent for me, father? Sit. Tyrion sat, studied Tywin's face. What's happened? Your sister has destroyed us. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Tywin handed Tyrion the message. The dwarf read. His face went white. Cersei and Jaime? For 12 years, gods, I knew she was proud, but this. Tyrion looked up. Robert has proof? The lineages book? The pattern of Baratheon inheritance? His bastards? All black-haired. And the children? Tywin's voice was ice. The children looked nothing like him. Apparently a 14-year-old bastard noticed what the entire court ignored. Jon Snow. Tyrion had heard about Ned Stark's bastard, Robert's new favorite. Yes, the boy discovered the truth. Told Eddard Stark. Stark told Robert. And now Cersei and Jaime are arrested for high treason, and the children are bastardized. Tywin stood and paced. The question is what we do about it. Can we do anything? Robert holds them hostage. If we march, they die. I know. Tywin's jaw clenched. I'm not marching. That would be suicide. We'd face the Crown, the North, the Riverlands, the Vale, probably the Reach and Dorne as well. 60,000 men against 200,000. We'd lose. Offer Robert something valuable enough that he might consider clemency instead of execution. Father, Robert Baratheon just discovered his wife of 14 years has been cuckolding him with her own brother. He's not going to show clemency. He's going to want blood. Perhaps, but he might settle for exile, or allowing Jaime to take the black, something that preserves House Lannister's long-term position. Tywin stopped pacing. I'll offer to forgive the Crown's debt. 3 million gold dragons. That's significant leverage. And if Robert refuses, then Cersei and Jaime die, and we survive. Tywin's voice was cold. I will not destroy House Lannister to save 2 people who brought this on themselves through their own stupidity and lust. Tyrion stared at his father. You'd let them die? I'd let them face the consequences of their actions. Cersei knew the risks. She chose to take them anyway. I warned her. Years ago, I warned her that her relationship with Jaime would destroy us if discovered. She didn't listen. Now she pays the price. And the children? Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen? Are bastards. Not Lannisters, not Baratheons. They have no value to me now. Tywin sat. Tyrion, I need you to go to King's Landing, as my envoy. Negotiate with Robert and Stark. Offer terms. Save what can be saved. Why me? Because you're innocent of the incest. Because you have a reputation for cleverness. And because, Tywin's voice was brutal. Because you're expendable if this goes badly. Of course I am. The dwarf no one wanted. Useful only when you need someone to throw into the fire. Will you go? His sister had tormented him his entire life. His brother, while kinder, had enabled Cersei's cruelty. Part of him wanted to watch them burn. But they were still family, and House Lannister was still his house. I'll go, Tyrion said. But father, if I save them, if I somehow negotiate clemency, you owe me. Owe you what? Recognition. Acknowledgement that I'm not just the dwarf who killed his mother, that I'm a Lannister worthy of the name. Tyrion stood. I'm tired of being your shame. Give me that and I'll save your golden twins. Tywin stared at his son for a long moment, then nodded. Agreed. Tywin sat alone in his solar, staring at the message, and felt the careful edifice he'd built over decades crumbling. Everything he'd done, every scheme, every manipulation, every ruthless decision, had been to secure House Lannister's legacy, to make his house the most powerful in Westeros. And Cersei had destroyed it all with her lust and pride. If she survived this, he would never forgive her. Red Keep, the trial, 1 week later, the throne room was packed. Every lord in King's Landing had been summoned. The galleries were filled with merchants, knights, and courtiers. This was the trial of the century, a queen accused of high treason, adultery, and passing off bastards as legitimate heirs. Robert sat the Iron Throne in full royal regalia. The crown of the conqueror weighed heavy on his head. Eddard Stark stood beside the throne, his hand. Jon Snow was present, standing with the household guards, a visible reminder of the boy who'd discovered the truth. Cersei Lannister was brought in chains. She wore a simple gray dress, stripped of her finery, her golden hair loose around her shoulders. But she held her head high, green eyes blazing with defiance. "Cersei of House Lannister," Robert's voice echoed through the hall, "you stand accused of high treason, of adultery with Sir Jaime Lannister of the Kingsguard, of bearing 3 bastard children conceived in incest and falsely presenting them as legitimate heirs to the Iron Throne. How do you answer these charges?" "I answer that you're a drunken fool who wouldn't know his own children if they danced naked before you." Robert's face went purple. "You dare. I dare because I have nothing left to lose." Cersei's voice rang clear. "You want me to beg? To deny? To claim innocence? I won't give you the satisfaction. Yes, Robert, I fucked my brother. For 12 years, I took the only man I've ever loved to my bed, while you were too drunk to notice. And the children," her voice rose, "the children are his. Every one of them. Not yours. Never yours. Because you were never a real husband. You called me Lyanna on our wedding night. Lyanna! You wanted a dead girl instead of the living woman in your bed." "Silence." Robert was on his feet. "I will not be silent. You want to know why I betrayed you? Because you betrayed me first. I was supposed to be your queen, and instead I was a placeholder for a ghost. So yes, I found comfort with Jaime. And yes, I gave him children. And if I had it to do over," Cersei's voice dropped to a hiss, "I'd do it all again. Because anything was better than being married to you." The throne room was dead silent. Robert descended the Iron Throne, crossed to Cersei. For a moment, Jon thought the king might strike her. Instead, Robert laughed. "You know what, Cersei? You're right. I was a terrible husband. I wanted Lyanna. I mourned Lyanna. I never gave you a chance to be anything but second best." His voice hardened. "But that doesn't excuse treason. That doesn't excuse passing your bastards off as mine. That doesn't excuse poisoning Jon Arryn when he discovered your secret. I didn't. Don't lie. Not now. Jon Arryn was reading the same book my ward read, visiting my bastards, asking the same questions, and then he conveniently died of a fever that killed a healthy man in days." Robert leaned close. "You killed him, and you tried to kill Jon Snow when he started asking questions. Admit it." Cersei said nothing. "Admit it." "Yes." The word was barely a whisper. "Pycelle gave Jon Arryn the poison, and I ordered the attempt on the Stark bastard. They were threats. I eliminated them." The hall erupted. Robert stepped back. "The accused has confessed. To adultery, to incest, to passing bastards as legitimate heirs, to murdering the former hand of the king, and to attempting to murder my ward." He returned to the Iron Throne. "I, Robert of House Baratheon, first of his name, King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, find Cersei of House Lannister guilty of high treason. The sentence is death, by beheading, to be carried out at dawn." Cersei laughed, high and cold. "You think you've won? You think executing me solves anything? Tywin will never forgive this. The West will never forgive this. You've made an enemy of the richest, most powerful house in Westeros. Sleep well, Robert, if you can." She was dragged from the hall, still laughing. Robert slumped on the Iron Throne, looking older than his years. Ned approached. "It's done. And now we wait to see if Tywin retaliates or negotiates." "He'll negotiate. He has no choice." "I hope you're right, Ned. Because if you're wrong, we're about to fight another war. And I'm too old and too tired for war." Red Keep Tyrion's arrival, 2 days later. Tyrion Lannister arrived in King's Landing the day after Cersei's trial. He came alone, riding a mule, wearing travel-stained clothes. No army, no guards, just a dwarf with a tongue sharper than any sword. Robert received him in the throne room with Ned at his side. "Lord Tyrion," Robert said. His voice was neutral. "You're brave to come here, or stupid. Probably both, Your Grace." Tyrion bowed awkwardly. his short legs making the gesture almost comical. I come as my father's envoy to negotiate terms. There are no terms. Your sister confessed. She dies. I'm not here to save Cersei. She made her choices. I'm here to save House Lannister from complete destruction. Tyrion's mismatched eyes were steady. My father offers this. He will forgive the crown's debt. 3 million gold dragons. He will accept Cersei's execution without retaliation. He will withdraw all Lannister forces to the Westerlands and swear renewed fealty to the Iron Throne. In exchange, you allow Jaime to take the Black instead of facing execution. You foster the children, Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen, in houses loyal to the crown but treat them decently. No torture, no murder. Just quiet exile. And if I refuse? Then my father calls his banners and marches. 60,000 men. He knows he'll lose, but he'll make you bleed for it. Cities will burn. Thousands will die. The realm will be weakened just as winter approaches. Tyrion spread his hands. Or you can accept these terms, gain 3 million gold dragons, secure Tywin's neutrality, and solve the succession crisis cleanly. What do you think? I think the terms are generous, more generous than Tywin Lannister has ever been, which means he's desperate. Ned studied Tyrion. What about Pycelle? He administered the poison that killed Jon Arryn. Pycelle serves whoever holds power. Execute him, or send him to the wall. My father doesn't care. Tyrion's voice was careful. Your Grace, I'm not asking you to forgive. I'm asking you to be pragmatic. Cersei dies. Jaime loses everything. His Kingsguard cloak, his inheritance, his freedom. The children are removed from succession. House Lannister is humiliated, but the realm doesn't burn. Isn't that worth the price of letting Jaime take the Black? Robert was silent for a long time. Jaime Lannister killed the king he was sworn to protect. He broke his vows once. What's to stop him from breaking them again at the Wall? Nothing. But at the Wall, he's 300 leagues from the capital, surrounded by men who hate oathbreakers, and serving a purpose, defending the realm from wildlings and worse. He dies there, eventually. Forgotten. Unmourned. Tyrion's voice was soft. Isn't that a worse punishment than a clean death? Robert looked at the Iron Throne, at the swords melted together, at the legacy of Aegon the Conqueror, who'd united 7 kingdoms through fire and blood. Fine, Robert said. Jaime takes the Black. The debt is forgiven. The children are fostered in loyal houses. No cruelty but no contact with Lannisters. And Pycelle goes to the Wall with Jaime. Those are my terms. Agreed. Tyrion bowed. Thank you, Your Grace. You've prevented a war. I've accepted reality. There's a difference. Robert stood. Get out of my sight, Lannister. You've done your duty. Now leave before I change my mind. Tyrion left. Ned descended from the dais. You did the right thing. Did I? Or did I just let Tywin Lannister escape justice because I was too tired to fight another war? You chose the realm's survival over vengeance. That's kingship, Robert. The hard choices. Robert's voice was bitter. I just want to drink and hunt and forget any of this ever happened. Soon, when this is over. Is it ever really over, Ned? Or does one crisis just lead to another until we're all dead? Red Keep, Cersei's execution, dawn. They executed Cersei Lannister at first light. The plaza before the great sept of Baelor was packed with small folk. Thousands had come to witness the death of a queen. Some jeered, some were silent. All watched as Cersei was led to the block. She wore white, a mockery of a maiden's gown. Her golden hair had been cut short, but she walked with her head high, refusing the Septon's offer of final prayers. Robert watched from a balcony with Ned and Jon. He'd considered attending personally, standing before Cersei as she died. But Ned had advised against it. Let her have dignity in death, Ned had said. You've already won. Island Payne, the king's justice, stood beside the block with ice, Ned's greatsword borrowed for the occasion. The Valyrian steel gleamed in the dawn light. Cersei knelt, placed her head on the block, spoke her final words loud enough for the crowd to hear. I die a queen, you live a fool. Island Payne swung. Ice took her head in one clean stroke. The crowd erupted. Some cheered. Some screamed. Some just stared. Robert turned from the balcony without a word and walked away. Ned and Jon followed. It's done, Ned said quietly. Yes. Robert's voice was hollow. Now I just have to figure out how to live with it. Red Keep. 3 weeks later, Stannis arrives. Stannis Baratheon sailed into King's Landing with a fleet of 30 ships and a face like a thundercloud. Robert greeted him in the throne room with more genuine warmth than anyone had seen him show in years. "Brother," Robert said, descending the Iron Throne to embrace Stannis. "Thank you for coming." Stannis returned the embrace stiffly. "You named me your heir. I came to fulfill my duty." "Of course you did. You've always been dutiful, Stannis. More than I deserve." Robert guided him to the side of the throne. "What do you know?" "Everything. The incest, the bastards, Cersei's execution, the terms with Tywin." Stannis's voice was flat. "I should have pushed harder when I first suspected. Should have demanded Jon Arryn move against Cersei immediately. My hesitation may have cost him his life. Cersei killed Jon Arryn. Not you. I could have prevented it, and I could have been a better king, a better husband, a better man. We can all live with regrets, Stannis. Or we can move forward." Robert's voice was unusually serious. "I need you. The realm needs you. You're my heir until I produce legitimate children, which means you're the second most important person in the Seven Kingdoms. I need you to be visible, present, a reminder that the succession is secure. I'll do my duty. I know you will. You always have." Robert clapped his shoulder. "Come, meet my ward, the boy who discovered the truth and saved us all." Stannis studied the boy with sharp eyes. "You noticed what no one else did. I noticed what everyone else ignored, my lord. There's a difference. Pragmatic. Good." Stannis's approval was grudging but genuine. "Robert tells me he plans to legitimize you. He's mentioned it, my lord. I haven't agreed. Most bastards would kill for legitimization, because I'm not sure I want to be anything other than what I am. Jon Snow suits me. It's simple, honest. Adding Stark to the end complicates things." Stannis's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. "You're wiser than most boys your age. Keep that wisdom. You'll need it." Ned, who'd been watching the exchange, approached Jon. "Stannis likes you. That's rare. He tolerates me. That's different. With Stannis, it's the same thing." Ned's voice was quiet. "Jon, Robert is serious about the legitimization. He's going to push for it, and I won't be able to stop him without raising suspicions about why I'm so protective of you. Then, what do? Accept it. Become Jon Stark. And pray that your true parentage never comes to light. Because if it does, if Robert learns you're Rhaegar's son, Ned couldn't finish. He'll kill me. We both will. For as long as we can. For as long as we must," Ned corrected. "Because there's no alternative." Red Keep 6 months later, Robert's second wedding. Robert married Margaery Tyrell in a ceremony that was everything his first wedding hadn't been. Joyful, public, celebrated. The realm rejoiced. The Tyrells rejoiced even more. Margaery was 16, beautiful, and politically astute. She'd been trained her entire life for this moment, and unlike Cersei, she actually seemed to like Robert. "Your Grace," she said at the wedding feast, her hand resting on Robert's. "I know I can never replace your first love. Lady Lyanna will always have a piece of your heart. But I hope to earn a piece as well. A new piece. For the future, we'll build together." Robert, drunk but not yet maudlin, smiled. "You're a clever girl, Margaery. Too clever for an old drunk like me, but I'll try to be worthy of you. Just be yourself, Your Grace. That's all I ask." It was a lie. Margaery wanted Robert to be managed, controlled, guided toward decisions that benefited the Reach. But it was a kind lie. And Robert, starved for affection that wasn't tied to ghosts, responded to it. Jon watched from the high table, legitimized now as Jon Stark, a process that had required royal decree and formal ceremony. He wore fine clothes, bore a sword Robert had commissioned, sat among lords and knights, and felt more out of place than ever. "You look miserable," a voice said beside him. Jon turned. Tyrion Lannister had returned to King's Landing as an observer, representing his father's continued neutrality. He sat with a wine cup, studying Jon with those mismatched eyes. "I'm fine," Jon said. "You're a terrible liar. Here you are, legitimized, favored by the king, sitting at the high table during a royal wedding, and you look like you're at a funeral." "Maybe I am. The old Jon Snow died when the king signed that decree. I don't know who Jon Stark is yet. Then you have time to figure it out. You're what? 15. Nearly. You've got decades ahead of you. Decades to become whoever you want to be." That's more than most people get. Tyrion drank. For what it's worth, you did the realm a service, discovering the incest, preventing Joffrey from inheriting. If you'd done nothing else with your life, that would be enough. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does. Welcome to the human condition, Tyrion stood. Enjoy the feast, Jon Stark. And try not to look so doomed. It upsets the other guests. Jon sat alone at the high table and wondered when he'd stop feeling like an imposter. Red Keep, 1 year later, the consolidation. 1 year after Cersei's execution, the realm had stabilized. Robert's marriage to Marjorie had produced a daughter, a black-haired, blue-eyed baby girl they named Lyanna. Robert wept when he held her. The realm had its heir, or the promise of one at least, if the next child was male. Stannis remained at Dragonstone but visited King's Landing regularly, serving as master of ships and Robert's most trusted advisor on military matters. Tywin Lannister kept his word. The Westerlands remained quiet. The debt was forgiven. And House Lannister, while diminished, survived. Jaime Lannister served at the Wall. Reports said he'd adjusted poorly, a knight accustomed to glory and adulation reduced to freezing on a wall, defending against wildlings who didn't care about his golden reputation. Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen had been fostered. Joffrey went to the Eyrie, where Lord Jon Royce was tasked with teaching the boy discipline. Myrcella went to Dorne, a calculated move by Robert to mend fences with House Martell. Tommen went to Highgarden with the Tyrells. Pycelle had been sent to the Wall with Jaime. A new Grand Maester served the realm. And Jon Snow, Jon Stark, had become one of the most celebrated young men in Westeros. He trained with the best knights, studied with maesters, attended Robert at court, and carried the secret of his birth like a stone around his neck. "You've done well," Ned told him one evening as they walked the battlements. "Better than I could have hoped. I haven't done anything except survive. Survival is an achievement, Jon, especially here, especially with Robert's favor." Ned stopped walking. "But there's something I need to tell you, something I've put off too long." Jon's stomach clenched. "What?" "Your mother. I've never told you about her, and I never will. Not her name, not where she's from, not how we met. Because if I tell you, if you know the truth, it puts you in danger I cannot prevent. Father, listen to me. There are people in this world, powerful people, who would kill you if they knew who you really are, who your parents really are. I've protected you for 15 years by keeping that secret. I need you to trust me to keep protecting you, even if it means you never know where you came from." Jon's throat was tight. "I trust you." "Good." Ned embraced him. "Because one day when I'm gone, when Robert is gone, when all of this," he gestured to the Red Keep, to King's Landing, to the realm. "When all of this is dust, the secret will die with me, and you'll be free, truly free. But until then, you must be Jon Stark, and you must never ask questions I can't answer." "I won't. Promise me." The words echoed something Ned himself had heard in a tower in Dorne 15 years ago. "Promise me, Ned." "I promise," Jon said. They stood on the battlements as the sun set over King's Landing, father and son who weren't father and son, bound by secrets and lies and love. And Jon wondered, not for the first time, whether the truth would have been better than this careful, necessary deception. Epilogue. 5 years after Cersei's execution, the realm was at peace. Robert was 42, still drinking too much, still hunting too often, but more engaged than he'd been in decades. Marjorie had given him 3 children, Lyanna, Stefan, and Cassana, all black-haired, all undeniably his. The succession was secure. Stannis served as Hand of the King. Ned had asked to return to Winterfell after 3 years, and Robert had reluctantly agreed. Stannis was rigid, humorless, and brutally effective. The realm ran like a military campaign under his administration. The Night's Watch had been reinforced. Robert, persuaded by Jon and Ned, had sent men and supplies north. When the Watch sent warnings about wildling movements and strange sightings beyond the Wall, Robert actually listened. "Winter is coming," Jon had told him. "The North remembers, and the Wall is our first defense." Robert had grumbled but complied. He respected the Watch now in a way he never had before. Jon Stark, at 20, had become a knight. Sir Jon Stark, sworn to no house but serving the crown. Robert wanted to name him to the Kingsguard, but Jon had refused. "I won't take vows I might break," Jon said. "The Kingsguard swears to hold no lands, take no wife, father no children. I'm not ready for that. Then what are you ready for? Robert had asked. To serve, to protect the realm, to honor the family that raised me. Jon's voice was steady. That's enough for now. Robert had accepted it, given Jon command of 100 men, sent him to deal with bandits in the Riverlands, then pirates on the Narrow Sea, then rebellious lords in the Stormlands who thought Robert's peaceful years meant weakness. Jon proved them wrong, quickly, efficiently, with the kind of northern ruthlessness that reminded people why you didn't cross House Stark. And through it all, the secret held. No one questioned Jon's parentage. No one looked too closely at his face and saw Rhaegar Targaryen. No one connected the dots between Lyanna Stark and the boy who looked so much like her. The secret was safe. For now. Winterfell, Ned's deathbed. 20 years later, Eddard Stark died in his sleep at the age of 55. A peaceful death, surrounded by family, in the castle where he'd been born. Jon received the news in King's Landing and rode north immediately. The journey took weeks. By the time he arrived, Ned had already been entombed in the crypts beside his siblings. Jon stood before his father's statue, carved in stone, hands folded over a sword, wolf at his feet, and wept. I never told you the truth, Jon whispered. Never thanked you properly for what you sacrificed. Your honor, your reputation, your wife's happiness, all of it to protect me, to keep a promise to a sister who died too young. The stone gave no answer. I'm 35 now, Robert's most trusted knight. A lord in all but name. And it's all because of you. Because you lied for me. Because you loved me enough to carry that lie for 20 years. Jon knelt before the statue. I swear to you, Father, I'll keep the secret. I'll never tell anyone who I really am. Your sacrifice won't be wasted. I'll live as Jon Stark until the day I die. And when I die, the truth dies with me. No one will ever know that the last Targaryen prince survived. That Rhaegar's son lived and served the realm that killed his father. He stood, placed his hand on Ned's stone cheek. Thank you for everything. Rest well, Father. You've earned it. Outside, Winterfell was covered in snow. Winter had finally come. The long night that the old stories warned about was approaching. Jon could feel it in his bones, could see it in the reports from the wall. But he would face it, just as Ned had faced every challenge in his life. With honor, with duty, with the knowledge that some secrets were worth dying to protect, and some lies were the most honorable truths of all. King's Landing 30 years after the trial. The final accounting, Robert Baratheon died in a hunting accident at the age of 67. Not murdered, not poisoned. Just old, drunk, and unlucky. A boar he'd wounded turned on him, gored him before his guards could intervene. He lingered for 3 days, long enough to see his children one last time. Long enough to name Steffan his heir, the black-haired, blue-eyed prince who looked exactly like his father had at 20. Long enough to call for Jon Stark. Jon, Robert whispered from his deathbed. Come here, boy. Jon approached. He was 45 now, gray in his beard, scars from a dozen campaigns, but still the same dark-haired, gray-eyed Stark bastard Robert had seen in a Winterfell training yard 3 decades ago. Your grace, don't your grace me. I'm dying. We can drop the formality. Robert coughed. Blood flecked his lips. I wanted to tell you something I should have said years ago. What, your grace? Better than any child I could have sired with Cersei. You saved me, Jon, saved the realm, and I never thanked you properly. You legitimized me, gave me a future. That was thanks enough. No, it wasn't. Robert's hand gripped Jon's. I'm dying. Steffan will be a good king. Marjorie raised him right. But he'll need advisors, loyal men like you. Promise me you'll serve him, guide him, keep him from the mistakes I made. I promise. Good. Robert's eyes closed. And Jon, if there's an afterlife, if I see Lyanna again, I'll tell her about you. Tell her that her nephew. He paused. Something shifted in his expression. A moment of clarity, of recognition. Nephew. Jon's blood went cold. Robert's eyes opened, focused on Jon's face with sudden, terrible understanding. You look like her, Robert whispered. Not like Ned. Like her. I always thought it was the Stark look, but it's not. It's Lyanna. You're not Ned's son. He stopped, coughed. Blood poured from his mouth. The maesters rushed forward, forced wine of the poppy between Robert's lips. The king's eyes glazed over. The moment of clarity passed. Robert died an hour later, never finishing the sentence. Jon stood over the deathbed shaking, and knew how close he'd come to disaster. If Robert had lived another day, another hour, if he'd said those words aloud where others could hear. But he hadn't. The secret held. One final time, Jon Stark attended Robert's funeral, served as one of the pallbearers, stood in the great sept of Baelor as the new king was crowned, King Stefan of House Baratheon, first of his name, and carried the secret of his birth for another 20 years, until he was old, gray, dying himself of a wasting sickness that the maesters couldn't cure. Jon Snow, Jon Stark, Aegon Targaryen, whoever he really was, died at the age of 63, alone in his chambers, no wife, no children, no heirs to carry the secret forward. The truth died with him, and the realm never knew that the last dragon had lived among them, had served them, had protected them, had chosen honor over birthright, duty over destiny, a lie over a truth that would have torn the seven kingdoms apart. In the crypts of Winterfell, his statue was placed beside Ned Stark's. Jon Stark, son of Eddard Stark, served the realm with honor. The inscription was a lie, but it was the lie that had saved the realm. And sometimes that was the best truth anyone could ask for. The Starks won the Game of Thrones. The War of the Five Kings was prevented. Hundreds of thousands of lives were saved. And it all happened because a bastard boy noticed that the crown prince had the wrong color hair. Robert's obsession with Lyanna led him to adopt the one child who reminded him of her, never knowing that child was Rhaegar's son. Jon Snow uncovered the Lannister incest and saved the realm. But the greatest secret, his own parentage, remained buried. Some victories come from truth. Others come from the courage to keep lying. This is the story of how the Game of Thrones was won, and what it cost the people who won it. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.